YouTube! Welcome in to today's react. My name is Red Senshi, and we're gonna be reacting to some Hollow Knight lore. So never touched it, never played it. We're going in blind.
Well, it took like 6 years, but we finally got a
insane.
release date for Silksong, September 4. That's amazing and all, but since I am the lore guy, I can't help but think back at something Team Cherry once said in an interview. That Silksong's story will have little to no connection with Hollow Knight's lore.
So a lot of people have mentioned that it's okay to play Silksong without playing the first game because the lore isn't connected. But this video explains what Hollow Knight lore we need to know before we do play Silksong. And that's what I want to know. And yeah, 6 years of waiting. But some people have said 7 years. So which is it? Is it 6 years or 7 years of waiting, chat?
The reason behind it is that they want to make new players to be able to jump straight into Silksong and enjoy it as a standalone game. Which makes sense. Silksong is the most wishlist game on Steam after all.
Wait, let's look at that. Okay, Hollow Knight Silksong, September 2025 follows 300,000. Hollow Knight is beating them by like 100 more, 100,000 more. That demand is insane.
So tons of people who never touched Hollow Knight before are gonna want to play it. It's just like the Elden Ring, which was the first From Software game for a lot of people. It will be a bit gatekeeping and it will alienate the wave of new players if they would have to play Hollow Knight first to understand what's happening.
Yeah, that's what a lot of games have, right? Is you need to understand or learn about the lore in the first game if you are going to jump into the next game. But it's nice that for Hollow Knight or Silksong, it's not the case.
Silksong. But still, I bet a good pile of geo that there will be some lore connection that will require or would make more sense if you know the Hollow Knight's lore. Stuff like how the Weavers, the main plot of Silksong, have spent tens if not hundreds of years in Hallownest, their second home.
Oh, wait. I want to go back and look at that map. Oh my god. Look at that map. I love the art too. It's a very, how can I describe it? Very, not really gloomy, but like somber, dark, but also very cute in a way. But yeah, that is a huge ass map.
Their second home. Hornets, Royal's blood and background, or even why there are just a few weavers left in the world. And to understand all of that, I'm gonna give you a recap of the main story of Hollow Knight and a more detailed breakdown on the key lore points that might matter the most for Silksong. Let's first begin with the shared world the games have. We don't know that much about the world of Hollow Knight, but from what we know it seems to be mainly a wasteland. Life here is quite scarce, but what does exist is mostly just primitive wild bugs. So
Bugs! Primitive wild bugs. Okay, that's all I know. That Hollow Knight has bugs. Okay, moving on.
Through here is pretty dangerous. Only the strongest survive here. In order to survive these harsh lands, some less wild bugs began forming small communities and tribes. They were drawn to the power of a stronger individual or in most cases to the influence of higher beings, rare entities with godlike powers. Bugs built temples in their honor and began to worship them. In some cases, these higher beings even created the bugs that inhabit their domain, such as the Mothkin, who were made from the dream of An, as well as the Moth tribe, who were born from the light.
A moth tribe! Oh my god! So is this? Who is this, chat? Is that the final boss? Is this the god?
Of the Radiance. The reason they created subjects to worship them is probably because their power is increased the more worshippers they have. But not all tribes follow a godlike being. Some other groups, like the Mushrooms tribe, worship a giant fat mushroom that seems to have a power to give all the other mushrooms a shared mind, but nothing else compared to the other higher beings. And also the Mantis tribe, who are a group of intelligent bugs that just follow the strongest in combat, such as the 4 Mantis Lords. But
4 Mantis Lords, okay.
long before all of these small tribes or any other group in the game, there was once a kingdom that was the most powerful and advanced civilization, even greater than anything that exists now. This was the ancient civilization, formed of very large bugs who have found an entity that is far stronger than anything else in the world. They devoted their worship to no lord or power or strength, but to the very darkness itself.
It's like it's giving like Dark Knight. So I like that he's explained, kind of given me an idea of the environment of Hollow Knight. You have small bug communities, you have the praying mantis, the mushroom. So it's giving me a nice and good picture of the game.
Known as the Void. The Void contains a lot of power,
The
and thanks to it, the
void!
ancient civilization was able to build their
Wait, so
kingdom with
he's the
ease.
void?
They created statues that can store soul, a substance that is found in every living creature, void gates to block paths that only they could traverse, and a lot of the structures we can find around Hallownest. They were also able to shape the Void using molds, creating beings like the Void tendrils. And through this process, it seems that they could also grant these new creatures a will, one that could be imprinted by the creator. Thanks to their seemingly infinite army and how easily they could build roads and structures, they were able to conquer and expand as much as they wanted, but despite all of that, their kingdom eventually fell, and its citizens died out, leaving only giant husks behind.
So it's like the void and the mold. Did I hear that correctly? I think you mentioned that there are some mold in this too.
Don't know what bring the downfall of the kingdom. The void doesn't have a will of its own, but it seems that it seeks to consume and destroy, and this could have happened to the ancient civilization. The void that they surrounded themselves with eventually consumed them, or they could have been defeated by the Radiance, the god of the moth tribe. She said that the void is her ancient enemy after all, but we don't know for sure. Although it is said that this civilization will one day return. We will talk more about the void later, but I want to emphasize this now because the void will definitely play a big role in Silksong.
Okay, so the character in Hollow Knight, I'm just gonna ask, is he a being from the void? Is he like a void knight? That's why it's called Hollow Knight? Basically, it's a bit complicated. Okay, so it's not a yes. So he's not exactly from the void.
In the last and final trailer, the release date was surrounded in the same void ambience and smoke just like in the Abyss, music and all, and there are even more ties to it. Returning back to the small tribes, thanks to their new gods or leaders, these tribes formed their own small cities and villages, but they were still not fully safe from the dangers from the wasteland, and especially their new neighbors. But all of that would change when the Pale King arrived in this land. The Pale Beings are a special tier of higher beings, and they are much stronger than them. If I will have to rank them, it will be normal higher beings like An, then the Pale Beings, then the Radiance, and then the Void. But the last two are a really special case. The Void is not really a being, and the Radiance, while more powerful, lived in a different plane of existence, which is the dream world. So her subjects could communicate and see her only in dreams. So that
Oh, that's so fucking good. That's such a cool lore. So in a way, that's why her subjects are more prone to worshipping her than I see. You know who else is a moth that dreams a lot? In the future, you will find out. Stay tuned in the Red Senshi channel. But I love that he's giving a very clear picture of the live community and world of Hollow Knight.
That will make the Pale Beings the most powerful ones in the story so far, if you don't count these special
Chat, are you a pale
The Pale
being?
King is from a species called worms. They are gigantic,
Worms,
highly intelligent
like
creatures,
WY?
and they are known for creating and ruling kingdoms until they eventually fall. And the Pale King is no exception.
Okay, so
Once the worm
WORM
arrived in
worms.
Hallownest and decided to settle, he took a different, smaller form to be able to communicate with the bugs living there. The Pale King also had a special power that gives wild bugs minds once they enter in his kingdom, giving them intelligence. The majority were drawn there by the pale light the king emitted, even from faraway lands, and they decided to dedicate their lives to worship and follow him. Not everyone, though.
So a lot of these little bug communities tend to worship a higher being, it seems. Yeah, it's giving like religious communities. But a community does need someone to look up to, right? Someone to worship to. Someone to keep them together, I suppose. Same for bugs. And that's why a lot of bug or ants and whatnot have like queens, like the bees.
A lot of the bugs had to be convinced to allow the Pale King to build and integrate them in his kingdom. The Mouse King wanted to keep a part of their territory and to keep An as their leader. The Mantis didn't want to be part of the kingdom, but in exchange they have to keep the capital safe from the bugs of Deepnest, who opposed the Pale King entirely. And the bugs in the hive just locked themselves from the outside world. All the other tribes, like the mushrooms, fully accepted.
Guys, they're so cute. Oh, look at the little guys. I want to pop them, but that might kill them. No popping.
accepted the Pale King, and the capital was built over most of their domain. The Moth tribe also forgot about their god, and now they worship the Pale King instead. Probably because they could actually see him in reality, not in just a dream like the Radiants. Paths were made in Hollow Cliff, so new bugs.
Wait, what? Oh, okay. Okay, so they're like, fuck this. I don't want to worship a god that I can only communicate with by dreaming. I want to worship a god that I can physically see. So the Moth tribe got tired of that, it seems.
Would come into the kingdom. The Pale King named his kingdom Hollownest, a place bugs could be safe from the danger of the outside world, the last and only civilization. But that was clearly an overstatement, just to impress his subjects. They even believe he created the world and everything in it. Like I said, worms are known for making kingdoms. And we also know there is Farlum, the kingdom where Silksong takes place. So there is clearly more than just one.
One
Hollownest
kingdom.
creation could be a parallel to Farlum. Farlum looks to be made as well from a combination between different tribes and small cities, judging by the diversity of the map, like the Moss Grotto, the Coral Forest, or this area
The Coral Forest. Oh.
that I think is called Shellwood. It looks like a higher being came and combined all of these diverse tribes into a single giant kingdom that might be even bigger than Hollownest, which makes me think it could also be created by another worm. But I guess it will be a bit boring to have another worm king. At the very least, it might be another higher being. So far, both kingdoms seems to share a similar origin story, and if they are both created by a worm, Farlum could as well grant wild bugs minds, which would explain how many intelligent bugs are in it. It's not like rational bugs do.
He's just a little guy. Okay, so I see why people say now that it's okay to play Silksong without knowing Hollow Knight. Because it's a completely different story. It doesn't start off from one point to another.
Not exist outside of a kingdom. We have plenty examples in the game, like Conifer, Tiso, Zote, Izelda, and many others, but most of Hollownest citizens are not like that. A good example will be Boone and Tuck, two bugs that are from the same species, but one of them can barely speak and the other one can have a full dialogue.
Okay, wait, he's such a big guy. These designs are really, really nice.
One can have a full dialogue. Once these bugs that have been granted a mind leave the kingdom, their minds revert back to how it once was, and they also lose all of their memories about Hollownest and what they did there, such as the Knight and Quirrell. But we know that Hornet does not lose her memory despite leaving the kingdom.
Okay, so her name is Hornet.
Of Silksong. We can even see how her capturers travel the wasteland to bring Hornet to Farlum. This could be because of Hornet's pale blood or thanks to the seal of bindings that is put on the cage. It also looks like it makes her dormant or something, because she only wakes up after the seal is broken. But back to Hollownest. After the Pale King established his...
Okay, so was she like a creature that the bugs feared? Is she too powerful? Well, she does have the pale blood, as you mentioned.
Kingdom, he got a wife, the White Lady.
What?
Another pale being that we don't know pretty much nothing about, not even where she came from. And the king also got 5 great knights that are guarding him and his palace. The kingdom thrived and society was developed. Now they even had aristocrats. But this period didn't last long. The Radiance was mad because she became forgotten and the Pale King took her subjects. She manifested her powers in the form of an infection. She entered in the kingdom's bugs' dreams and they started to get infected. Mind controlled by her and becoming more large
that's
with orange cysts
evil.
on their body. They had gone mad and attacked everybody around them. The Pale King tried to do something about it. It is
Oh no, so defeating the Radiance actually had a really bad effect. She turned into a freaking infection. Oh wow, okay, that's sad.
at this point or somewhere around it where the Pale King used the Abyss and the Void. We don't know if he knew about it before, maybe this is the reason why he settled in this land. He knew about the Void and its capabilities, just like the ancient civilization. The Pale King started to experiment with the Void. First he created the lighthouse to keep the Void Lake dormant, then he took the liquid Void and stored it in these Void containers at his workshop at his own palace in the Asian Basin, an area between his capital and the Abyss. With different molds and armors, he created the King's molds and the Wings molds, imprinted with the will to serve him. With the power of the Void, he discovered a way to seal off the infection and make his kingdom last eternal. If there was someone with no will or dreams, he could seal the radiance inside that individual, so he decided to create this creature. He and his wife had hundreds if not thousands of offsprings. Then he placed the eggs inside the Void where they would would be corrupted and consumed by it,
Oh.
thus becoming the vessels. We can see their corpses all around the
Mm.
abyss bottom, and one of them is the knight, protagonist of the game.
Ah!
But they were not the chosen one. That was the Hollow Knight, the only one that was deemed a pure vessel by the Pale King. The king locked the entrance of the abyss, trapping all of his offsprings inside, and left them to rot there. But the knight somehow managed to escape and leave the kingdom. The Hollow Knight grew at the White Palace with the king and queen for a time. But before the Pale King could start his plan, he needed some help from the Moth tribe, who had to teach the Pale King about the dream world and move the radiance inside the Hollow Knight's mind.
Okay, that's a lot of lore. Okay, so he was born from the void, but because of his blood, he was able to not be corrupted and managed to survive and live with the king and queen. So Hornet is pale blood, but Hollow Knight is one true knight. It's a lot, you guys. Okay, that's really good lore though. Because how did he avoid just being another vessel?
And also by Deepnest, and more specifically by Hera the Beast and the Weavers. As I've said, Deepnest and the Pale King were not on good terms. The Pale King wanted to seal the Hollow Knight inside the temple made of void to make sure the radiance is fully contained, and then he further wanted to put a few seals on the Hollow Knight to make sure they will not escape. For that he needed the silk of the Weavers. We know for sure that Farloom is the original home of the Weavers. We don't know why or when they came to Hallownest. It doesn't seem to be because of the Pale King. I guess Silksong might tell us more about Deepnest in general, because Team Cherry said that they will explore Deepnest more in the future. I assume they left Farloom because of what was happening there. The entire kingdom seems to be through some sort of infection or mind control as well. The enemies there seems to be attached to strings like puppets. And silk overall is important for their plans, because it has a lot of power and utilities. They probably need more silks to control even more.
Okay, someone must be controlling all of them. That's what I'm just gathering because of all these silk or string.
More bugs or to control something much bigger. And the weavers seems to be the only ones or the main source of silk. Because they were hunted by the kingdom, they were forced to move out. After they arrived in Hallownest, Hera had found a king and she became the queen of Deepnest. Besides the weaver's silk seal, the Pale King also needed an additional seal on the entrance in the Black Egg Temple that could be made with the power of 3 dreamers. 2 of them were already down to help the kingdom and the king, but Hera had to be convinced to sacrifice herself for them. So for all of this help, a deal was struck. The king of Deepnest died or disappeared at some point, and Hera was left without a mate, and she wanted a child with royal blood. So in exchange she asked the king to give her a child with pale blood, which means crazy bug sex. A hidden
I was not expecting that. That was so blurred too. The king was like, alright, bet.
stag station was made between the Weaver's Den and the White Palace. After Hera got the child, the Weavers began to work on the seals. We can even see many silk spools around these 2 stag stations. After some time, Hera gave birth to Hornet, but she wasn't able to spend too much time with her because soon she would have to become a dreamer. So she was probably raised by the Weavers. They even call her princess. At some point in the Hollow Knight development, Hornet was described as the daughter of 3 queens, born from Hera, the queen of Deepnest, raised by the White Lady, the queen.
So guys, who the wife, the white lady? What is this being? Is she another higher being? Because like, who is this wife? The lore actually goes very, very deep. Like, it's not just about some bug trying to find his way and kill the bad guy.
Queen of Hallownest and trained by Vespa, the queen of the hive. And it is from Vespa where Hornet got her name. But we don't know if that is still canon or not. Hornet is the only child of the Pale King not to be tainted by the void, so she was called the gendered child, since all the Pale King's other offsprings lack gender because of the void. A very popular question is if Hornet has any void in her. And I am obligated to say no, because otherwise Mossbag will come after me, but I suspect that she might have a tiny bit of void in her, or she knows a lot of stuff about it. Because in Silksong we have 3 interesting enemies. One of them we know from even before Hollow Knight was released, the Steel Assassin Sharp. A creature that looks almost the same as the Kings and Wings moles. They also have void-looking attacks, so it is very likely they were made from
whipping with his nose.
We can see the other 2 enemies right here in Silksong, and one of them looks exactly like Steel Soul Jean. an NPC that appears only in Steel Soul's run, where death is permanent. Normally in her place is Confessor Gigi, a bug that was sent here by her masters. Gigi seems to have a lot of knowledge about the void and even knows how to manipulate it to some extent. If you have the Void Heart, an item that symbolizes how the knight took control of the void, Gigi says that her master will be impressed. Jin says that her masters don't seek order because their minds are other. And if you got the Void Heart, Jin says that the knight had become more like her masters. I guess these masters sent Jin and Gigi to help the knight with their quest, and also sent...
Okay. So they made sure that they are out there to help the knight out. Okay, that's okay. There's so many characters in this game. So many names, so many characters to remember. But a lot of them just end up helping the main characters.
These assassins for Hornet, but we don't know why. It looks like these masters are kinda like the bugs from the ancient kingdom that could shape and control the void. They are likely the ones to make these creatures with the void. So I'm pretty sure that we will learn more about the void in Farlum. While being here, I want to talk about Lifeblood. Lifeblood are these little creatures that come from these cocoons. They have the ability to give you more health and make you feel refreshed. Lifeblood originated from the Abyss, and it was possibly created by this giant Abyss creature.
Okay, they're very, very pretty little creatures. You know, creatures that look like would help.
6 blue eyes that can be seen
Six
here
blue
and
eyes.
also in the God Masters DLC. This creature is tied to the Lifeblood. Maybe they are the one who created it. Lifeblood is also present in Silksong. So far we know there is a tool that allows Hornet to inject herself with it, gaining an additional 2 masks of health. So we might encounter this creature again there. After the Pale King managed to seal the Radiance, the Hollow Knight and the temple, the infection stopped and the kingdom started to go back to normal. Everything seems to have been saved, but this didn't last long because the pure vessel wasn't actually pure. It was tarnished by an idea instilled. The Hollow Knight likely had some feelings to their father and
I think that's spoiler chat. I think that's spoiler, but that's okay. That's okay.
they forced themselves to do this task, to be hollow, because they knew everything was dependent on them. But that little thought and fear was what allowed the Radiance to use and slowly corrupt the Hollow Knight. Eventually the infection started to leak off again, and the Pale King wasn't able to do anything about it this time. As much as he was trying, his kingdom was fated to fall. He could just delay the inevitable. The Mask Maker says that this is the fate of every kingdom that expands much more than they needed to, just like the ancient civilization. So the Pale King resorted to a last desperate plan. He and the White Lady made the King's Soul Charm that represent their union. Each took a half of the charm and they went into hiding. The White Lady remained in her garden and wrapped herself in a cocoon, so her roots will no longer spread and others will not be drawn by her light. And the Pale King retreated in the White Palace, which was moved probably by the remains of the Moth tribe in the Dream World inside one of the King Mold's mind. The Pale King eventually died on his throne. His death was likely to be caused by the Void, who made its way into the King's Mold mind, and eventually the throne room. Or maybe it was by the Void from the King's workshop and the Void the guards were made of. The throne room is quite dark and black smoke and particles can be seen around it. All the guards outside are dead and the Pale King is now just an empty husk. It looks like the Pale King, just as the ancient civilization, was taken down by his own creation and the Void. The final plan of the King was to wait for another vessel to crawl from the abyss to get both pieces of the King's Soul Charm and to face their true nature, which means for the Knight to face their memory of their birth, that they had forgotten once they leave the kingdom, thus accepting and uniting with the Abyss, creating the Void Heart, the final and only power that could take down the Radiance. Or at least I think so. We don't know if the king actually planned for this to happen. He seems to be dependent on very random things, which I think that's why it was a really desperate plan. But until this plan would happen, the kingdom slowly had become more and more infected and ruined over time. Bugs started to live at the surface in Durfmound where the infection didn't reach yet, but many of them decided to move out and left the kingdom. One of these groups was the Weavers, who saw there was nothing left for this kingdom, and if they would remain there, they would eventually get infected as well. So they decided to leave and go back to their original home. Also leaving the princess and the queen behind. I mean, fuck them, am I right?
Yeah, but they had no choice. They had no fucking choice. The infection was gonna spread, so they couldn't stay. Yeah, the kingdom died. They had to leave. They had to save their own life.
Okay, they probably left Hera because she was already half dead, and this was Hornet's home and she wanted to remain there to protect it. Aris said in one interview about Silksong, weavers, or what's left of them in these lands, are helping her. There are just a few weavers remaining because a lot of them died in Hallownest. We can see quite a few weavers' corpses in the weaver's den, and even a still living one that will run the moment you get close. We also have a lot of little weavers that were infected by the radiance. Only a few managed to arrive in Farlum, and I think they will be the ones to discuss about Deepnest with Hornet, or any other events that happen in Hallownest. That is, if they didn't forget about it. And also I guess back home wasn't that great either. Now they are hunted and forced to produce silk for Farlum. I also want to talk now a bit about one of the 5 great knights, the mysterious Zemir, or Great Mourner as of late. She originates from Land Serene, a place far off from Hallownest. At some point she fell in love with one of the 4 Mantis Lord's daughter. Sometime later that Mantis Lord chose to give in the infection in order to get more power. After that he and his troops attacked the queen and the queen's garden, and it was in that war his daughter died. Zemir was devastated by the news and mourned her sins at her house in the resting grounds. In the game she has a last burden. She wants to bring a flower to her lover's grave, a flower that she had bring with her from her original home. That is the delicate flower. The delicate flowers are rare, sacred objects which have pale light, and most of the time what is called pale is very powerful. The butterfly that broke the seals of Hornet's cage is also described as pale. This flower can be given to a couple of NPCs in the game. The White Lady refuses to get one because she knows they are powerful. In one of the endings, this flower is so...
One of the endings. Okay. Warning for those who are concerned about the endings. If you're okay with watching, go ahead.
Powerful that it can vanish this huge void creature that completely destroyed the Radiance. And it looks like Zemir and this flower comes from Farlum. Not only we see similar looking flowers around this area, but right now there is a Steam badge named Everblue, and this flower is the exact same one as the delicate flower. There is also a badge with an arcane egg. These eggs were used by the ancient civilization to store information. They are made of void and contain some sort of wheel. The knight can find 4 of them around Hallownest, but to see one here in Farlum means only 2 things. Someone like Relic Seeker Lem must have brought it here, but I don't really think that's the case. I think this means that Farlum, just like Hallownest, has an ancient abyss area somewhere deep in the kingdom. This will explain the void references we have in Silksong and how the eggs got here. There are only a few connections to Silksong left, so let's wrap up the story. After the kingdom fell to ruin by the infection outbreak, again, the bugs of Hallownest either got infected, died, or have left the kingdom. It is at this point where the Hollow Knight started to call for help, and 2 bugs heard their call. One of them is the Knight. The Knight and Hornet fought a few times throughout the game to test the Knight's strength, and Hornet understood that maybe they are what is needed to cure the infection. The Knight
Oh, that's cool. So they've actually fought in Hollow Knight the first game, and they've met each other. Okay.
was able to get the King's brand and even the Void Heart, and made peace with the void within them. After the Knight managed to break the 3 Dreamer seals, they were able to enter the Black Egg Temple, from where there are a few different endings. Team Cherry said each ending is canon in its own way. It's your story, so you create your own path. The ending you choose is canon for you. But if we talk about Hornet and Silksong,
So a specific ending is canon for you. So how many endings does Hollow Knight have? And I'm imagining there's different tiers, like bad ending, good ending, perfect ending, true ending, and stuff like that. But that's very deep. Oh my goodness.
we know that's not true. There is a true ending of the game that Silksong continues. But based on the information that they want to make Silksong a separate experience, I don't think Silksong will ever mention any of these endings. But I think it's still worth discussing, because maybe they will give just a few hints about it. The first ending is the Knight absorbing the infection and the radiance inside them and containing the infection. But they are no different from the Hollow Knight, so they will probably leak off infection just like that. The second one is more or less the same, but Hornet gets trapped inside the temple with the Knight, becoming a dreamer, which definitely is not canon to Silksong. She has to be in Farlum here. The third one is considered to be the true ending, and it has the Knight entering the Hollow Knight's mind with the help of Hornet and killing the Radiance within, with the help of all the other vessels from the Abyss, thanks to the Void Heart that creates the bridge between these 2 worlds. The Radiance is consumed by the Void and the infection is cured completely. But the knight dies in the process. This is the
Aww.
most likely to be the canon continuation to
Yeah.
Silksong. The last two are related to the God Masters DLC. Here the knight enters in another dream world where they can fight against the bosses, and at the end they can fight a more powerful version of the Radiance. But this time, thanks to the God Masters'
10 months.
godly
God
focus,
secret.
they managed to
5
bring
Mondays.
How could a story about bugs be very fucking sad? It's like a whole web of, as you said, 5 endings and different outcomes, and oh my god. It's a lot, and I really appreciate that the devs have gone that far for the lore.
back a creature that was likely created by the ancient kingdom. All the vessels are combined with the void and create this void entity that completely eradicates the radiance. After the fight is over, the void entity starts to consume the entire Godseeker's dream and leak out into the world through the Godseeker's body. That creature is probably even worse than the infection, but just like we already discussed, if you give the Godseekers the delicate flower, this creature will be killed by the flower, or sealed, or something, I don't know. In these two endings, the infection is also cured, and the Hollow Knight, now freed from the Radiance influence, comes out of the temple and prepares to fight Hornet, or to have some sort of reunion, I guess. I don't think these two endings will ever be mentioned. Not many players were able to finish the Godmaster's challenges and reach the end, and I don't know what the Hollow Knight could do in Silksong. I guess their encounter could be mentioned, but I really doubt that. And this brings us to the events of Silksong. So why was Hornet captured by the cult from Farlum and brought all the way here? Well, first of all, Hornet is part Weaver as well, so she probably also has the ability to
So that's why she has a needle. Okay, makes sense now. I was wondering, why does she have a needle for a weapon? Okay, so she's part weaver.
produce silk. Since there are very few weavers left, they might need even more spiders to produce the silk. We know that they have tools to even recycle the current silk, so it looks like they are desperate for even more. But Hornet is also half pale being. The pale power seems to be important in Silksong. Maybe it will have even more importance than it had in Hollownest, because the butterfly and the delicate flower are from here. Maybe Hornet can produce a special type of silk, like some sort of pale silk that the leaders of the cult wants for their plans. In the game, Hornet looks to be able to convert this silk into different types of attacks, like her Gazimir Storm or the Silk Spear. I guess the silk or Hornet might have some special abilities. We should also remember that Hornet is the daughter of Hera the Beast. Hera, despite not being a higher being, she could be a special type of weaver that can produce a different type of silk, or even more of it. She
looks like some form of spider too, or like a big caterpillar spider or something like that. It's the best I can describe her.
the queen after all, and she looks different than all the other weavers. Maybe it was her power to be able to make the seals the Pale King needed. We don't even know who was the king of Deepnest or why the weavers were the rulers of Deepnest. They don't seem to be that powerful compared to other creatures there. They even have the largest room in Deepnest, only for them and their cocoons. There is a cut boss in Hollow Knight that looks like a giant spider, and we also have this statue in Deepnest that might represent the king. This statue also has a seal of bindings around it that looks similar to the one made by the weavers, so they probably made this one too. If the king, just like Hera, comes from Farlum and not from Deepnest, it is very likely that we will learn more stuff about the king and why or how he died. I think Hornet conversation with the weavers could shed some light on all of these questions about Deepnest. Even their rooms in Farlum looks the same as the ones they have in Hollownest, but I guess that depends on how crucial the information will be. I guess the main conversation will be about Farlum and they will help Hornet to get more silk powers, but they could also have some casual dialogue that mentions their history. Or even Hornet herself could talk about it, because she is very likely to know all of this stuff. And that's more or less the biggest information and connections you need to know before you start your Silksong journey. To give you just a quick recap about what is important, Hornet is a pale being and a weaver. Other higher beings like the worms, pale beings, or even the lifeblood creature might reappear in Silksong as well. Farlum is also going through some sort of infection of their own. Its citizens are controlled like puppets. We don't have a dream nail to see if they are also mind control as well, but I guess they are too. And the source could be another godlike creature or just another higher being. Farlum is home to a few pale creatures and objects. The void is very likely to make a return, and Farlum will probably have its own abyss and void, maybe this time at the top of the kingdom instead of the bottom. Assassins created by Gigi's and Jin's masters are after Hornet, and they will show up around Farlum to kill or capture Hornet, probably because of her knowledge about the Void. The Masters looks to have intimate knowledge and control over the Void. And Deepnest in general, Hornet and the Weaver's history might be mentioned and explained in the game. Now, I hope this information will have at least some relevance and it will help you understand more of the future story of Silksong while you play it. But don't worry even if you still didn't get it, because I will surely be here to explain it with tons of other stuff when the game will be in our hands. Well, also after the 100 hours I will put in my first playthrough of the game. So be sure to be subscribed if you are hungry for more Hollow Knight lore, even though I think Mossbag will be the king of that. Like the video if you enjoyed this explanation and recap of the game, and I guess we will see each other again in Farlum. Have fun and make sure you don't get smooched by this guy when you're not looking, or to be crushed between the cheeks of big
Oh my god!
Jim.
First of all, this was a really good introduction to the world, the characters, the key roles in the game, and this is definitely an info dump, yes. But it makes sense. Now the question is, do I want to play the game now? Yes, but I know that because of how hard it is, it probably won't continue if there's a point in the game where it gets too hard and I get too lost and I'm like, I don't feel like it.